All right, well, I'm going to get started. Hopefully we're all in here in the webinar, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. My name is Neela Fortune, and on behalf of Packer Collegiate, St. Anne's, Berkeley Carroll, and Brooklyn Friends, we're really happy to have you here with us this evening to learn more about the study of engineering in college. We are very lucky to have here with us tonight representatives from 5 different universities, as well as a group of students who are currently studying engineering. And you will hear from folks from Worcester Polytechnic Institute, Harvey Mudd College, Lafayette College, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, and Binghamton University. We have seen at Packer and our peer institutions as well that in recent years, we have seen a lot more interest from students in studying engineering. And engineering, in fact, is a vast area of study with lots of different pathways. And so it is our hope that this evening will help you understand a little bit more about what the undergraduate study of engineering is like. So before we dive into it, I want to tell you a little bit about how our program is going to unfold. First, we're going to hear from Professor Koen Gieskes from the University of Binghamton about the study of engineering, broadly speaking. We'll then have a section where you will hear from college representatives who will first share a little bit about what it's like to study engineering at their respective institutions, in addition to giving us some clarity about the kind of preparation that can support students looking to study engineering in their future. After that, we'll hear from some students about the student experience and hear some advice about studying engineering from their perspective. This program will then end with a broad Q&A where you can type your question into the Q&A section of the webinar. And that gives you a bit of an overview about how we're going to proceed. So it makes me very happy to be able to, in a moment, introduce to you Professor Koen Gieskes, who is currently serving as the interim director and engineering lab coordinator for the engineering design division, as well as the interim assistant dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Watson College of Engineering at Binghamton University. Along with his role for the first-year engineering program, Professor Gieskes teaches sustainability engineering courses and serves as the co-director for the Upward Bound Math Science program and the Science and Technology Entry program. And he has taught in STEM and STEAM summer camps for K through 12 students for over 15 years, culminating in 2019 when he received the Chancellor's Award in Teaching. Professor Gieskes received both his bachelor's and master's degrees in mechanical engineering from Binghamton University, and his research is now primarily focused on engineering education. Let us welcome him. And so Professor Gieskes, if you can turn your camera on. Thank you.
Hello and good evening. So as mentioned, my name is Koen Gieskes. I am currently serving as the interim director for our first year engineering program at Binghamton. Now, I'll talk a little bit about what engineering is, sort of why we have engineering, and then I'll talk a little bit about the main sort of types of engineers. There's a lot of types of engineers out there. I'll talk about some of the main ones and then only briefly mention some of the others. So engineering, what is it and why do we have it? Engineering really is an applied science. What that means is you have your straight sciences, you've got physics, chemistry, biology. Those are professions where you study the world around you. You figure out things about the world around you. Engineering is an applied science, which means we take that information that physicists, that scientists all around figure out, and we create new things using it. So we apply that science to practical purposes. We solve problems. We create new things, new structures, machines, new systems. And so that really what engineering comes down to. We create new things, we solve problems. Engineering itself sort of developed through time. At first, engineering was all within the space of the military. And so designing weaponry, designing siege engines, things like that. And then the very first sort of private branch of engineering was civil engineering, and that's civilian engineering. So it was no longer part of the military. Now we were civilians designing things. And so those civil engineers are one of the original types of engineers. And they really look at creating new aspects of the world that we use in civilian life. So working on roads, working on bridges, designing tunnels, designing dams. And so civil engineers work a large part with big scale systems. And one of the sort of sub branches of civil engineering that's very popular right now touches on environmental engineering. And so environmental engineering is a second type, and that field really looks largely at just what it says, designing environmental regions. So making sure that pollution doesn't spread, that you are finding sources of pollution and finding solutions to them, designing things in a way so that you don't pollute. And so environmental engineering works largely with the natural world and works largely with cleaning up or preventing pollution. Some of the main sort of most commonly known types of engineering, I'm a mechanical engineer by background. That is, in my opinion, one of the broadest areas of engineering. And mechanical engineering is the design of mechanisms, of things that move or things that don't, but anything physical that's out in the world. A mechanical engineer most likely has touched it. And so we are designing anything that moves. And I like to look at civil versus mechanical. Civil engineering, you don't really look at time except for in really long measures. Mechanical engineering, you tie in the movement of stuff when things happen quicker. The other big field of engineering that is very popular is electrical, and then computer engineering is a side part of that. But electrical engineering is working with anything that has electricity, from simple circuits to a light, to a computer, to a entire VR headset. Anything that has any kind of electronics or phones, an electrical engineer definitely has taken a look at it, has been working with it. Electrical engineers do a lot with power supply design. And computer engineering is sort of a sub branch that's related to electrical engineering, but focused primarily on computers. And so it is electrical engineering and computer engineering. There's a lot of overlap between the two, but one is a little bit more focused on computers and the other one is focused more on all of electronics. There's a couple other big fields of engineering. One of those is chemical engineering. And so a lot of people get into chemical engineering, and that is looking at any type of mixture of materials, mixtures of chemicals to create new things. Chemical engineers are very often employed in anything like the natural gas companies, oil companies. They are looking at new ways to do things with the materials that we have. So looking at ways to make better materials, to make cleaner solutions out there. Another field that's very common in engineering is nuclear engineering. And so that is working primarily with nuclear power plant reactors, do the design, the operation, everything to do with nuclear power. And that's a fast growing field in engineering as well. So those are some of the basic ones. There's a lot of other fields of engineering. There's so many out there: industrial systems, biomedical, which is the focus on anything that incorporates living bodies into engineering. So designing of human tissue or any kind of tissue, designing of organs or replacement organs, There's sustainability engineering, which is one of the things that I also teach. And I think sustainability engineering is actually a very broad field that touches on all the different engineering types. And it's a way of looking at the world to make sure that we design solutions that are sustainable, that are a way for us to continue as humanity without lessening the quality of life of individuals. Beyond that, we also have lots of others: geotechnical engineering, there's aerospace engineering, there's marine engineering. There's so many different fields within engineering that each one is very specialized. Now, overall, the general path for an engineer is, and the things that you want to know are, you should know mathematics and sciences, because we apply the sciences. So you need to know them. You need to be interested in science. You need to be interested in math. There's a lot of math in engineering. There's a lot of math courses in engineering as well. You also need to know and want to have an interest in making the world better, because that's what we do. We look around and we say, things are not as good as they can be. What can we do to make the world better? What can we do to make the world easier for everybody? And then usually what you will end up doing is you end up going to a college or a university. There's 2-year, 4-year engineering programs, and some of them have a shared first year. Others, you immediately go into a major of your choice, and then you get your bachelor's or your associate's degree in engineering or engineering technology. And from there, you either go into industry or further on into academia. Very often students will end up getting a master's in engineering. So you have not just a bachelor's degree, but you might get a master's degree in engineering as well. That's it's getting to be more common, but one of the things that often happens is companies where the engineer works will pay for that engineer to continue their education. And then from there, people can get their PhDs, but PhDs are not that common in industry. PhDs are common in academia and research for engineering, but not as much in industry. And trying to think of any other quick factoids, because I don't want to spend too much time on this introduction, because we have a lot of great panelists here who can give you lots of information as well. Let's see. Engineers, one thing that I would generally say for anybody going into engineering is keep your passions with you. So I'm a mechanical engineer, but I am also an artist. I like to do stuff. I like to work with sculpture. I like to work with my hands. I like to build things. And using that and applying my mechanical engineering knowledge to it makes life more interesting. And so designing new things and actually building them, that's part of what I do as an engineer. And that's part of what all engineers should do, is they should take their passions and use engineering to help their passions. Very often engineers will be into music, and they use their engineering skills to make new instruments, to design new sound systems, to design new entire ways of speakers, of how to record sound, how to broadcast sound, any little facet of that field. If you're passionate about it as an engineer, you can make it better. You can make it a more usable space. But with that, I see that I am at my 10 minutes. So I will turn it over to our other panelists, and I will be here for questions later on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Professor. Now we're going to hear from each of the admissions representatives about their particular institutions to give you a sense of the different kinds of experiences that you could have as an engineering student. So we would love for each of you, our admissions friends, to introduce yourself, your name, your institution, and tell us just a minute or two about what it's like to study engineering at your kind of institution and what makes the engineering curriculum distinctive at your school in particular.
And I think I get to start off, or was it you, Jill? I think I get to start off because we're going the order of maybe West Coast first. I'm not quite sure, but I'm Raisa Diamante. I'm the Director of Enrollment Strategies and Operations at Harvey Mudd College. And Harvey Mudd College is a STEM-focused liberal arts college in Claremont, California. So we ask our students to tackle the mission of becoming leaders in their field and to understand the impact of their work on society. As I mentioned, we are STEM focused. We are part of a consortium called the Claremont College Consortium, where it's about 6,500 students together. And basically there's 5 undergraduate colleges together. Harvey Mudd in itself, we focus on STEM. We're a campus of about 900, undergraduate only. And then within that STEM focus, we asked our students to do a core curriculum. This is before they even declare a major. The idea behind that core curriculum in that first 2 years is that students have a similar skill set. They're taking the same classes. They're seeing the connections between different disciplines. They start to build appreciation and begin to collaborate with their peers. There's actually no grades your first year. So we're saying we want you to explore STEM, just explore STEM broadly. And we want you again to build those skill sets. We have an honor code that really helps guide both the academic and social life of campus. After that core curriculum, typically after that first year, that's when our students will declare their major. So some students will declare engineering. Engineering happens to be our largest major, computer science being the second largest, which is a completely separate major. General engineering at Harvey Mudd's pretty different. It's a general engineering program. As our professor just mentioned, there's so many areas of engineering that are available. So at times students are unsure about, should I be civil? Should I be electrical? Should I be mechanical? What are these things that we want, that I should pursue? For our students, through our broad engineering program, we produce folks that are going to be capable of really adapting to the changing technology and just the changing sets of problems that you'll be tackling. Our students will take classes that are in engineering sciences and systems engineering, and then later on in design and professional practice. So they have a broad engineering program, the opportunity to specialize. So you could be more civil, more electrical, or more mechanical, but really broadly, we want you to be an engineer that has a wide skill set, a big toolbox, so to speak, to work from. The big practical experience for our students that is actually the hallmark of our program is the clinic program, where we put you in a team of 4 to 6 students, not 46, that's a big number, 4 to 6 students, and you work for a company and you get a live problem. You work with them for a full year, your senior year. You're in a separate project your junior year for half a year, and you get to work for Tesla, and you get to determine things like which ones of their connectors are failing and why. Or you might design a cleatless soccer shoe for Nike. That one didn't do so well. Just spoiler alert, it's not in the market. But you think about like what is possible, right? And what are the needs of the community that there might be. So the clinic program is an awesome place. About 1/3 of those projects in that clinic program actually apply for a patent. So that's really great for our Harvey Mudd students to get that hands-on professional practice through their time at Harvey Mudd, and that being a guaranteed experience. I would be remiss to not mention, I should make sure that I mention that as much as we love our STEM folks on our campus, we actually expect them to take 30% of their classes in the humanities, social science, and arts, meaning non-STEM. And our students actually have to have a minor, or what we call a concentration, in something outside of STEM. So as was just mentioned earlier, there's so much that work that you can bring into the arts, into the social sciences, to inform you to become a better STEM person, a better person in general. So we expect that our students are broad in that way, and being part of that Claremont College Consortium, being in that square mile of about 6,000 other students and still having your home at Harvey Mudd really helps out with that experience. And I think I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to my colleague. I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thanks, Raisa. So I believe I'm next. So my name is Andrea Castro. I'm one of the assistant directors at Lafayette College in the admissions office. I'm actually sitting in my home office, about 15-minute walk away from campus. So it's safe to say it's a nice place to be. As far as our engineering program, all students technically come in undeclared. And so you can, on your application, say, you know, I'm interested in integrative engineering, I'm interested in chemical engineering, but essentially you're coming in without an official major tied to, you know, your account, so to say. And so with that, engineering students have until the end of their freshman year to declare their major. How we help with that is in the first semester, all students take a first year seminar. It is part of our common course of study, but specifically for those students who are interested in engineering, you are going to take your first year seminar in the introduction to engineering, essentially. So if you're caught between the different types of engineering that we offer, you're not sure exactly what you want to focus on, do not fear. The first half of the semester, you can take, you know, a module that focuses on civil engineering. And then for the second half, focus on a module that is based on mechanical engineering. And by the end of that, hopefully you have a bit of a clearer idea. Although we do have that common course of study and you are undeclared, you are able to go ahead and start taking classes in the major. Again, the first year seminar in engineering counts. You take intro to engineering, as well as a math and a science course. So you are still starting on that curriculum pretty quickly. As you kind of go through our program, again, we do have kind of I always call them like the classic engineering program. So civil, chemical, electrical and computer, mechanical, but we also have engineering studies, which one of our big things that we push is the importance of liberal arts in engineering. And so as Professor Kuhn was talking about how he has his passions outside of the realm of engineering, we find that a lot of our students do as well at Lafayette. And so we want to provide them with that opportunity to pursue that. So engineering studies is one example of that type of program. We also have engineering studies with a dual major in international studies. We also have integrative engineering, which is our newest major. That is sort of more of a liberal arts broad background. And then students can focus on bioengineering, environment and energy, or robotics. So we have a couple different options for our students just based on their passions, of course. As far as the rest of the program itself, we do have a lot of opportunities for our engineering students to be involved with each other. So we have different engineering societies. We have the Engineering Student Council, which kind of oversees all of our different engineering groups, and that is, you know, run by students. We have the Society for Women Engineers, the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, as well as the motorsports team and all these fun things that you can do, in addition to, as I said, accessing all of those great clubs that we have from, you know, the rest of our campus. We have some engineering minors as well. So you can do architecture studies, as well as minors in mechanical engineering and I believe civil engineering. For students who want to make the most out of their experience, study abroad is often something that I hear engineering students, they come to me and they're like, oh, you probably have study abroad, but you know, I want to be an engineer, I won't be able to do that. A good portion of our engineering students actually are able to take advantage. We have a study abroad program that is fully integrated into the major so that you're still able to graduate within your, you know, kind of allotted 4 years. And you can go to Bonn, Germany or Madrid, Spain with your fellow classmates and enjoy a semester abroad in the spring of your sophomore year. And we always say that we're a little light on engineers in that spring semester because so many of them are taking advantage of that opportunity. So I will go ahead and pass it along to my colleague to continue this wonderful conversation. Looking forward to answering your questions.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jill Butcher. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology in Terre Haute, Indiana. Thank you to my colleagues for giving a brief update on their schools. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Rose-Hulman. We are a school of about 2,100 students, STEM majors, but you can minor in something that has to do with liberal arts. Some of the things that might make Rose-Hulman a little distinctive from other places is we are on trimesters. So we have 3 academic terms a year. Those consist of 10 weeks of classes, 1 week of finals, and 1 week break in between the various trimesters. Students can start in their major if they think they know what they'd like to pursue. If you're unsure, we'll put you in a general curriculum. I think one of the other things I'd like to touch on is that Rose, like all schools, is very collaborative and not competitive. We do not cap our majors at Rose-Hulman. So once you're admitted to the institution, you are guaranteed your major, and there is no separate application to get into that major. We are very project-based. We firmly believe that no engineer solves a problem on their own. So we want to teach our students to work in teams and how to be accountable and how to work with each other. So that starts from your freshman year on. Another thing I'd say about Rose-Hulman, all of our classes are 30 students or less, and they're all taught by PhD faculty. So we don't have any TAs or GAs teaching any classes. And Rose has a very unique community. Somewhere along the line, a community was created of trust and respect, and that continues to work today in 2023. It's not necessarily an honor code, but it's an expectation that every student that comes to Rose is expected to be a positive contributor to the community. And so that continues to work for us. In fact, our students do not lock their residence hall doors at night. Kind of an open door policy. You can be working on your laptop, go get something to eat, come back, your laptop's right there. It's all about that community of trust and respect. One of the places you'll find our students in the evenings is down at our 2 innovation centers, the Kramer and the Branham Innovation Centers. Those house our competition teams. We have 15 competition teams. If you're into robotics, we have 4 robotics teams, air, land, underwater, and Mars rover, as well as Grand Prix Formula One racing, SAE mileage, Kimmy Car Club. There's a number of opportunities to be involved. And one thing about Rose-Hulman is we want you to participate in everything that you're passionate about. So there are no tryouts for these competition teams. We have a very robust performing arts department here on campus, and there are no tryouts for those as well. We want students to embody the full experience. So you can find our students down in the innovation centers working on either the competition teams. Your senior year at Rose-Hulman is a senior design project or a senior research project, depending on your major. So those are also housed in our innovation centers. So I think the main point to kind of talk about this evening is very collaborative, very project-based, small and personalized attention to help you kind of carve that niche that you find for yourself. And if you don't know what it is, we'll help you find it in your first year here at Rose. So thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to Craig.
Well, thank you. So we'll go from Indiana over to New York. I'm Craig Broccoli. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for Binghamton University, which is part of the State University of New York. And like Professor Giesges, I actually studied mechanical engineering at Binghamton. So I love this subject matter. I'm based here in New York City representing Binghamton, but Binghamton is one of the 64 campuses in the SUNY system. It's a massive public system. Binghamton is one of the larger universities. For this panel, of course, about 18,000 students, 14,000 of them are undergrad. So we're definitely undergraduate heavy. 6 different colleges in terms of choices of study, areas of study, engineering being one of them. We're about 3 hours away in upstate New York, right outside the city of Binghamton. And just for context, like my colleagues had mentioned, engineering is one of many options that students would pursue, where we do highly encourage students to blend in lots of areas of interest. As Professor Giesges says, bring your passions too outside of just engineering, if that's what you have on your mind. We're a liberal arts university at heart. That's what we started as, and we grew over the years to a larger, at this point, R1, highest level of research university out there. So we do research across the board, and our undergrads are heavily involved in that. About 40 years ago, the Watson College of Engineering started, and in that name is Thomas J. Watson, the founder of IBM, which started right down the road from Binghamton. There was a big need for more engineers, and that's where our engineering college grew from, with 5 core engineering disciplines, some of the broader ones, as mentioned earlier: mechanical, electrical, biomedical engineering, industrial and systems engineering, computer engineering, a minor in sustainable engineering, and of course, computer scientists. We incorporate them into our engineering college. So that's another track that students may consider. Everybody would come in as an engineer with an interest in engineering. So you would declare that on your application. We look at you for a spot within our engineering college, and then you start off in what we call the engineering design division. similar to Lafayette, but spread over a year. You have a year of study in this design division as you take courses in the science and math, and make a really wise guess of what you want in engineering, because you try them all out in that first year experience of the different disciplines we have. And that will lead you right into your next 3 years of study in that discipline, as well as courses well outside of engineering. That's the liberal arts core that will be reflected throughout your 4 years. And then culminating with, in many cases, a capstone senior design project. Over the years, I mean, over the last 10 years since I've been watching this at Binghamton, $200 million worth of new facilities have opened up between our engineering and our sciences. We do a lot of research, certainly at the graduate level, but we are focused heavily on making sure our undergrads get some of that research experience. So we're actually one of 5 schools in the nation right now with a first-year research program. 2 of the 10 streams are focused for engineers coming in clean energy research and signal and acoustic analysis research, so electrical and computer engineers. We do a lot of work at the university level in sustainable research across the board. Our engineers are really leading the charge with that in energy generation, energy storage. One of our professors won the Nobel Prize for inventing the lithium-ion battery. So that's a big deal at Binghamton in terms of where we see ourselves going in the future. But I do want to really point out, when you're at a bigger public university, we expect our students to get outside of maybe that 1 or 2 areas of passion and bring in those other talents and interests. Division I athletics, 450 clubs and organizations, over 1,000 study abroad programs. There will be a lot going on at the higher level here, lots of choices. So students come in and usually are ready for that. So I'll pass it over to WPI on the New England side.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here tonight. My name is Caroline Nicholson, and I am from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. WPI is located about 4 hours from Brooklyn in the small city of Worcester, Massachusetts. We're somewhere between a small and medium-sized school with about 5,000 undergraduates and 2,000 grad students. Academically, we are really a STEM-focused school, and 2/3 of our students study some kind of engineering. 12 different engineering majors to pick from. We have the traditional civil and mechanical, and some harder to find programs like robotics engineering and aerospace engineering. Definitely a lot of flexibility at WPI, so you don't have to know what kind of engineering you want when you apply or when you start on campus. We're known for our focus on project-based learning, so we definitely have a more hands-on approach. Then there's a variety of projects that all of our students do. One of them is a project that almost everyone completes abroad. While I know it can be tough to study abroad as an engineer at some places, it is really built into our curriculum with 90% of our students going abroad. I also always like to mention that all WPI students receive a scholarship to help offset those costs of going abroad. In your senior year, all WPI students complete a big project in their major, can be research focused, design focused, or sponsored by a company. I'll mention just a couple of cool projects this year. We had some biomedical engineers create a device to improve kidney stone surgeries. We had mechanical engineers and robotic engineers work together to create ropeless traps to catch lobsters that don't hurt whales. Pretty cool. Like some of the other institutions here, all of our students do take some courses in the humanities and arts. We require 6 classes in that area. The nice thing is you pick how you want to fulfill this. So if you hate English, you never have to take an English course at WPI. You could fulfill this through music, a world language, theater coursework, politics, totally up to you. And that is just a brief overview of WPI. Excited to share a little bit more about WPI and engineering with you throughout the session.
Great, thank you, everyone. Next, we have a few questions that I'm going to direct to each of the admissions representatives addressing a different component of the admissions process. I'll direct it to one representative, and then if anyone else has something that's very different at their institution that they want to chime in on, you are welcome to, clearly. So first, the first question is for Raisa. What do you look for in admissions? in terms of preparation in the high school curriculum when you're evaluating an engineering applicant?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Lisa. And I think, and I'll give a broad answer to that question, and then I'll answer for Harvey Mudd specifically. And actually, what I'm going to say for Harvey Mudd will probably apply for many other schools. But broadly speaking, we're looking for 4 years of English. We're looking for math, calculus, if it's an appropriate amount of challenge for a student, that's a requirement for Harvey Mudd. For some institutions, pre-calculus is sufficient for applicants in their high school curriculum, but Harvey Mudd specifically, calculus is required. We're looking for science courses, and that's broadly defined for a lot of places, but for Harvey Mudd, we do require that chemistry and physics needs to be tackled within your high school curriculum. We don't designate what level of chemistry or what level of physics. I think we just want exposure, because again, for Harvey Mudd, when you jump into that core curriculum, you're going to see material that's going to expect that you have knowledge of calculus, knowledge of chemistry, and knowledge of physics. Being a liberal arts college, we want you to take some social science courses. So at least 2 years for Harvey Mudd, and a language other than English, at least 2 years as well. But that 4 years of English is pretty key. That's probably going to be a requirement for all bachelor's institutions that you're going to be looking at. Oftentimes we get asked about elective classes. How many electives in the sciences should I take? And we know that not every school will have the same set of courses. So some exploration into more STEM. So if there's an elective class, a computer science class, maybe a robotics class at your school, maybe even a design engineering class, go ahead, tackle that. But know that know that once you're at our institutions, we're going to provide you with the classes for your actual major. So exposure is good, but not a requirement. So there's many students that are admitted to Harvey Mudd that basically have calculus, chem, and physics, and they've not had the opportunity to do more STEM focused classes beyond that. Calc, chem, and physics is more than enough for us. And lastly, I'd say, make sure that you're talking to your counselors to figure out what the appropriate amount of challenge will be for you as a high school student. Because we want to see successful high school students, because they lead to hopefully successful college students. So tackling perhaps too much rigor too early on may not be great for a student. So we're not always, so that's not our expectation that you have to have, done calculus by like 9th grade or something like that. If you have, great. I would actually say take more math after that, if that's the case. But again, know that consulting with your counselors, they know your high school's best, they know you best, and they'll help you sort out the appropriate amount of challenge that'll help you prepare for the steps after high school. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Next to Andrea, can you speak a little bit about what kinds of extracurricular activities you might look for that would support an engineering applicant?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we at Lafayette do a holistic review. And as I said, all of our students come in basically undeclared, even though you declare an academic interest. So it's not necessarily that we admit by major, but being that we are a holistic review school, we do pay attention to your activities in and outside of school. So a lot of common themes that we see with engineering students are anything from I joined my robotics club or my robotics team or my coding team at my high school to, I build and repair computers for people in my neighborhood, family, friends. That's, something that we see a lot. So a lot of those kind of science, technology-based clubs certainly are helpful in showing us how you apply those things that you're learning in the classroom in, a social and kind of, extracurricular outside of the classroom setting. But specifically talking about Lafayette, and, my colleagues might have similar thoughts, especially being how prominent liberal arts schools are. We, again, focus on liberal arts and engineering. So seeing that our prospective engineering students are well-rounded in other areas. So again, going back to engineers who love art, engineers who love theater, engineers who are interested in sustainability or, have started their own business repairing computers or, you know, anything like that. That is also something that really sticks out to us in students who are taking that initiative, again, applying their skills and their passions in other areas and showing us how they can be a well-rounded candidate. Not only does that show us things that you're learning and the things that you are interested in outside of your academic interests, but it's also showing us, and I think my colleagues can speak to this as well, how you can integrate yourself as a part of our community. So if you are an engineer who is interested in sustainability, you might be able to talk to one of our students, should you become a leopard, about his electric flight, how he flew an electric plane over our big rivalry game, and, you know, brought a lot of attention to the importance of sustainability and electric transportation and things like that. And so I think, you know, all those different extracurriculars, whether they are science focused or not, are things that we see and certainly things that we look for in terms of speaking to you as a whole student and not just you and the things that you can produce academically.
Thank you. And next, Jill. So if those are the courses and the kinds of activities, can you talk a little bit about what qualities of mind you might look for in an engineering applicant, and how that might come across in the application?
Sure. Well, at Rose-Hulman, we evaluate applications holistically as well. But as part of that evaluation, we're primarily looking for 4 things beyond your transcript. 1 is passion for STEM. 2 is responsibility. 3 is resilience. And 4 is initiative. So passion in STEM, we're looking to see if a student has competed on STEM competition teams, if they participated in high school STEM research, etc. So a lot of that can come through in your clubs and activities, your passion for STEM, as well as maybe your essay. Maybe you write about taking apart a computer at your house or other appliances that hopefully you were able to successfully put back together. So a lot of that will come through your passion for STEM with the courses and the clubs and activities. Responsibility is a little bit harder to gauge in that we want to see that you've displayed thorough commitment and fulfillment of obligations. Basically, have you taken ownership of both your career and maybe everything you're doing outside of school? Do you have a job? Are you on competition teams? What kind of responsibility do you have with your family? So we're looking for ways in which you've demonstrated a commitment and followed through with that, basically taken ownership. The third is resilience. Demonstrated grit and self-improvement. A lot of times we will read essays that talk about how you overcame a challenge, or the essays will go into more detail. A lot of times we can glean what we need to about resilience out of an essay, or maybe the letter of rec talks about something that you didn't even mention on your application, how you overcame managed obstacles faced in life or other things. I've seen teachers tell me about the student lost a sister and it wasn't anywhere in the essay, but yet the teacher rec kind of filled me in on everything. So I think it's really important, those letter of recommendations, if I can say one thing about them, choose somebody to write it that knows you well, because we really glean a lot from the letters of rec. We want to make sure they're talking about your aptitude for learning and your character. Last but not least is kind of initiative. That's demonstrated in innovation, entrepreneurship, creative ideas. Did you start a club? Did you start your own business? Maybe you have an iPhone repair business that you started. Have you started something in your community or organization or completed an internship? So a lot of that will go back to the clubs and the extracurricular activities on the application. So you do want to make sure that you're as thorough as possible when you're filling out that section of the Common App or any application. And then also we'll refer to the letter of rec, because the letter of rec can often tell us a little bit about initiative as well. So those are kind of the 4 areas we're looking at primarily outside of a transcript that we think will help us decide and determine if a student will be successful at Rose-Hulman. Thanks.
Thank you, Jill. Next up is Craig, and your question is, In today's test optional world, where many institutions are test optional, do you find that engineering applicants are more competitive with testing and being able to demonstrate strength in that area? And after Craig speaks to that issue, if anyone else, if it feels like it's very different at your institution, please chime in. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to be a little broad on this too, because there are going to be some scenarios out there where testing, maybe a school or university may be test optional, many are, but they may not be test optional for, say, their engineering or their computer science pathways. And in that case, this question is important, but you still have to just submit your test scores, and it's worth looking into that or asking that question for the schools you're looking at. Though many schools that are test optional stay test optional for their other areas or all their areas, the question of it being more competitive will definitely go into the numbers here. And engineers should start thinking more seriously about this. So on face value, no, your test scores themselves are not necessarily changing your admissibility to an institution in a general sense. Where I'm going with this, though, is you have to really hone in on the middle 50% scores or our averages as we will post them. And in the test optional realm, often you want to try to take the ACT or SAT maybe more than once to see where you score and how you do, prepare for them. And then you have that option whether or not to submit that. The caveat here, or the area of focus, is it's fairly common for engineering average SAT scores to usually be slightly higher than maybe other subset averages at an institution. And we're not always publishing all that data, but it's worth that question, that if you're looking at the middle 50% score of a college or university of our posted averages, and you have a solid SAT or ACT score that maybe is in those ranges, it's usually advised that you're in a strong spot. It's not necessarily going to hurt to submit those scores. But you do want to clarify where you kind of fall within that. If you're towards the higher end of those ranges, that may put you in the sweet spot for, say, engineering or computer science. If you're on the bottom end of even the middle 50% ranges, you may want to have that conversation with some of the top schools on your application list of where do I fall within the competitive realm of other test senders for this specific area that I'm interested in, because it could vary and it often goes a little higher than the posted middle 50% ranges. But again, use that if you feel it's a strength of yours in the test optional realm. And that's where the numbers will tell you that. Don't simply feel you need to submit it just for another piece of data if it's not necessarily showing a strength relative to our incoming class.
Thanks, Craig. Anyone else want to say anything about standardized testing?
I'll jump in just because I think we are the one test blind institution on the panel. So we do not consider SAT or ACT scores at all in our admission process. We were the first STEM school to go test optional back in 2007 and moved to the test blind policy in 2021.
Excellent. Okay. And Caroline, you're up next for this next one. So we've passed all of those were admissions related questions. And then this is sort of the after you study engineering. Can you comment a few different career paths have been mentioned so far tonight, but can you comment a little bit more about what engineering grads go on to do in terms of careers?
Yeah, certainly. This is a big one. You can do almost anything as an engineer. I will just briefly mention a few of the most popular engineering majors and some careers they can lead to. I'll start with aerospace. As an aerospace engineer, you might design and build aircrafts or spacecrafts. You could work at an aerospace and defense corporation like Lockheed Martin, or at a place like SpaceX or Boeing. A number of our aerospace engineers at WPI are in our Air Force ROTC program and entered the Air Force after graduation. Biomedical engineering is another really popular subset of engineering, in that you can develop devices and procedures that solve medical and health-related problems like surgical devices, prosthetic limbs, and artificial tissues. As a biomedical engineer, you could go on to work at places like Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, pharmaceutical companies, or hospitals. Chemical engineers, another big area of engineering. You might be involved in improving food processing techniques or developing methods to produce drugs, among many other possibilities. You could work at a place like Pepsi or Frito-Lay, or at a pharmaceutical company like Bristol Myers Squibb. Civil engineers, I think a lot of people out there probably have a sense of what civil engineers do, designing and building things like bridges, roads, highways, and tunnels. Many of our civil engineers go on to work at construction and engineering firms. Electrical and computer engineers, the big mouthful there, design and develop and test anything electronic or related to computers. As an electrical or computer engineer, you could be a software engineer at places like Dell or Amazon. You could also work in telecommunications or the aerospace industry, among many other options. Last but not least, I'll also talk about mechanical engineering, which is really the most broad of the engineering fields. Mechanical engineers can go into a whole variety of industries, including automotive, aerospace, computers, energy conservation, robotics, and manufacturing. Many of our mechanical engineers go on to work at places like Amazon Robotics, GE, Bose, or Pratt & Whitney, which is an aerospace manufacturer. Now, that's just a brief overview of some possibilities. One resource that I always like to mention to students and families is colleges' outcome reports. WPI and most colleges have some kind of report on their website where you can filter by major to see where students are being hired and what kind of roles they are doing in at those companies. So highly encourage all of the students out there to take a look at WPI or any other school in this panel outcomes report to get a better sense of what you can do with each different area of engineering.
Thank you, Caroline. And then one last question to the panel before we move on to the students section is, do any of you have both BA, Bachelor of Arts, and a BS, Bachelor of Science, in any of your engineering programs? And if so, can you talk a little bit about the difference between what it might mean to pursue those?
It's pretty quick for Harvey Mudd College. All of our majors are bachelors of science, whether it's engineering, computer science, biology. They're all BS programs. So perhaps someone who offers BAs can speak to the difference.
So I can jump in a little bit. We do offer BS and BA degrees. So that engineering studies and the engineering studies and international studies dual degree that I mentioned, those are examples of our engineering BA programs. Essentially, the main difference is it's, you know, kind of pushing or pulling back a little bit on those really STEM heavy courses. So a BA engineering student might not progress as far in our science, technology, engineering, and math courses as some of our BS engineering degree students. And again, it's more of that kind of liberal arts, interdisciplinary, policy focused type of courses compared to the Bachelor of Science degree. So for us at Lafayette, that is kind of the biggest difference.
Okay, panelists, thank you so much for all that insight to your institutions and to the various questions we posed with you. We're going to bring in our three student panelists who we are lucky to have here with us. We have Diana from Harvey Mudd, Lexi from Rose-Hulman, and Anastasia from WPI. So I'm just going to ask the students to turn their cameras on so we can see you as we conduct the student panel. And we'll get started when all three of them are in here. I see Diana, all three of you are here. So if you could just prepare to unmute when we're going to start the questions. So thank you so much, the three of you, for being here with us. And again, just so everybody's clear, Diana is here from Harvey Mudd, Lexi from Rose-Hulman, and Anastasia from WPI. If you guys have a chance while we're doing the panel to rename yourselves so we can see your institution would be great. But why don't we just start with this and we'll go in that order, Diana, Lexi, and Anastasia. Can you just first kind of just introduce yourself and tell us like what year you are, what your specific major is, and how did you know that you wanted to study engineering? So Diana, let's start with you.
Perfect. Yeah, I can go first. Diana, Harvey Med College. I'm a senior. HMC only has general engineering degrees, but we are able to kind of specialize in pathways. So it's a general engineering degree, and the pathway is design management and manufacturing. And then how did I believe that last question was, how did I know I wanted to do engineering at MUD, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so MUD is really central on its social impact. It has a really big mission statement that it's about engineers and scientists who are aware of their community and are aware of how they impact their community. So that was just something that always really spoke to me. I wanted to do, you know, meaningful, big impact work, and that's why I decided to go to Harvey Med.
Okay, thank you. Lexi, let's hear from you.
Hi, I'm Lexi Crawford. I'm a sophomore civil engineering major at Rose-Hulman. I'm also doing Spanish minor and English language and literature minor. Why I wanted to do engineering. I did some research in high school through a school class, but I worked with a professional civil engineering firm, which I thought was just very interesting. I had a lot of fun with them. I actually have interned with them this past summer and this upcoming summer. And everything we did was just really interesting and really spoke to me. So doing that in class and during the summers and everything, it's been a lot of fun.
Great. Anastasia?
Hello, everybody. My name is Anna. I am a senior at WPI, and I'm double majoring with both biomedical engineering and then professional writing. I wanted to study engineering because I really loved projects in high school. That was like one of my favorite types of assignments. I really liked the process of working on a project. I liked the process of working on some sort of an open-ended problem, and being creative and working either in a team or individually to come up with some sort of creative solution to that problem, or maybe giving people a different way to think about the problem. I really enjoyed that. And then the reason why I wanted to study that at WPI more specifically is I think that WPI offers a really great opportunity for students who specifically are interested in engineering, but they also have a lot of other passions and interests in the humanities and arts that they would like to integrate into their course of study specifically, as evidenced by our humanities and arts requirement that I think Caroline talked a little bit about earlier, but also just how easy it is to incorporate your own personal interest into your projects at WPI.
Well, thank you. I think sometimes people have this idea that engineers, like, kind of all they do is work all the time. So this next question is a little bit about kind of like, what are the other experiences that have been other than your coursework that you're doing? Could you each speak to what other experiences, whether that's internships or research or study abroad, that have been part of your college experience with engineering? Diana, you want to start again?
Yeah, I can start us off. So in terms of other things that I do that's kind of outside of the coursework, I am part of the civil structures research group. So that's a lot of travel. We are dam engineers, no pun intended. So I do spend weeks at a time on site, which is a lot of fun. Did that in lieu of a study abroad program, but study abroad is definitely attainable if you are over at HMC. Besides that, kind of something that is separate from engineering, and kind of important to my kind of philosophy, again, doing that societal impact work. So I do work at an MPO, which works with college access for marginalized communities.
Mm-hmm. Lexi?
Yeah, I've definitely done a lot at Rose-Hulman. We provide a lot of opportunities outside of just school, which does take up a lot of time, but that's engineering. I'm a sophomore, so after my freshman year, I had an internship. I'm going back to the same company this upcoming summer. I know a lot of students at Rose-Hulman have internships every summer, if not co-ops. I've also done study abroad. Last summer, at the beginning of the summer, I went to London and Scotland for a couple of weeks with a class. I took that class in the last quarter of school, and then I got to actually experience it in Europe, in the United Kingdom, which is really fun. On campus, just during the school year, I work. I'm an admissions ambassador, so I give tours and everything. I tutor in our learning center, and I do Res Life. We have RAs, and we also have sophomore advisors, which is kind of just helping students adjust to life at Rose. So there's a lot of fun stuff. And there's also a lot of community service oriented things, which I think is very important to me. Our American Society of Civil Engineers chapter, I'm the service community chair, so I actually lead a lot of cool service projects.
And then for me at WPI, I would definitely say that extracurriculars are a very big part of campus life. I would say pretty much most of our students, if not all, are involved in at least 1 to 2 other extracurriculars, if not more, outside of their classes. I've been involved with a bunch of different stuff over my time at WPI, but I think the things that have really stuck and that I've been consistently active in, I'm a tour guide for the admissions office. So I give campus tours. I tutor at the WPI Writing Center. I also work as a team dynamics consulting fellow in our project center. So like helping teams to work better and more efficiently, and giving like equitable opportunities to maybe underrepresented students on campus within context of working in teams. And then I was also very involved with Society of Women Engineers. So basically helping to put on professional development and networking events for students who identify as female on campus, but also just like fun little de-stressor events, things like that. And then I also am involved in some community service efforts in and around Worcester, which is the city that WPI is in, for my Orthodox Christian community, but also some other associated things as well. And then as terms of studying abroad, I'm not sure if this was mentioned before, but WPI does have an interactive qualifying project where you go abroad in your junior year of WPI university life, and you complete basically an engineering project that has some sort of intersection with the social sciences. And I completed mine in Israel last year, and it was probably my favorite experience during my time at WPI. I met so many amazing people outside of my major that I don't think I would have met otherwise. And it's just a really cool way of, I think, testing your ability to tackle an open-ended problem in a community that's very different from your own. So
it's amazing the diversity of experiences that you guys have all had to have. And it sounds like very rich and opportunities. What advice do you have for high school students? I guess I want to go back to, sometimes that we work with students who might be thinking, I really love science, I love physics, I love chemistry, like the difference between kind of studying engineering and versus, just loving science and doing that. But like as students who are here on the Zoom tonight are sort of thinking about it, like kind of what advice do you have for students sort of who are thinking about doing engineering?
Yeah, that's a bit of a loaded question. I think definitely when I was transitioning from high school to college, definitely thinking, what's important to me? What do I want to do with it? I know you spoke a little bit on having that passion for, chemistry, physics, and what's the difference between having that passion and studying engineering. And I think that's really what you want to do with it, what you want to get out of it. As always, as application season comes around, as commitment season comes around, be true to yourself, find that community, and everything else will kind of fall into place is what I think I got to say about it.
My advice would be, don't be afraid to try different things. When I was thinking about college, I was between studying journalism and engineering, so 2 vastly different things. But I talked to people in both fields. Don't be afraid to find connections, talk to those connections. Shadow, it's all really helpful. I still love writing, and I tutor writing, and I take my HSSA classes in English. But engineering is really where my passion lies, and it took shadowing someone and doing that research project with them to really be sure about that. So use your connections and do what you can to learn about what you might want to study.
Yeah, I think maybe the core difference between just like having an interest in science or some sort of STEM discipline and then engineering itself, is I think that I think it's one thing to like learn about a specific subject and then practice within that discipline. And I think that that in itself is something that's really great. And if you're interested in a very specific field within STEM, like math or physics, and that's what you want to pursue, I'd say go for it. But I think engineering is different in that you are learning about how to deconstruct problems, and you're not just learning about how to solve those problems and get answers, but you're really learning both how to learn, which is I think a general thing in college, but you're learning how to ask better questions so that people can think about problems differently, and like maybe understand underlying issues that nobody was noticing before in some sort of a broken system. And yes, you might choose like a lens to look through that. So you might choose mechanical engineering, or you might choose chemical engineering or biomedical, and that's the kind of scope or the lens that you're learning how to do that within. But I think, as Caroline said earlier too, like you can really do anything with engineering, and it's very flexible. So like for me, like I personally also loved the idea of doing engineering just because of that flexibility. And I knew that I had a very deep interest in many different types of things and types of fields. But at the core, I liked solving problems and doing projects. So I think that that's something to think about for engineering. With that said, that's also hard work. So I would just be prepared for the fact that it is challenging, but it is very, very rewarding. And I think to echo what Diana and Lexi have said, like, especially with applications, like it's so important to stay true to who you are. And I think when you are going into the college application process, it seems like this big thing where you have to like impress a bunch of people and you need to like hit all these boxes. And I think as long as you are showcasing who you are in your application, the right school or university is going to see that, and they're going to say, okay, this person is going to be a really great fit at our university. And I think you can't go wrong in that way. Like that's really what this application process is about, is just giving these schools the opportunity to see who you are, and then you'll be placed kind of according to that. Yeah, I think that would be my advice.
That's great advice. We had a question that came in the question and answer while you guys were talking that I think is appropriate for us to ask right now, which is, first of all, we're lucky that we have 3 women here studying engineering. And the question is, what's it like being a woman doing engineering, being on your campus? I mean, we all, tend to think of engineering as being male dominated. So is there anything that you'd want to share about that aspect of your experience?
Yeah, of course. So at MUD, we actually have a 50-50 ratio. So it is equal parts women and men. So definitely not male dominated here. I think it is also important to note the different kinds of support you can find on campus, not just as a woman. So I know as a woman, we do have the Society of Women Engineers, but there also are services that cater for first-gen students, low income students, working class students, BIPOC students in that sense as well. So there's always support on campus. In terms of what is it like being a woman engineer student on the campus, it is definitely a lot of support. You won't really feel a big difference, and we're really fortunate for that.
That's great.
Yeah, Rose-Hulman does not have a 50-50 ratio, and sometimes I can tell that there are a lot more men in my classes. But I'm at the point in my career where I'm mainly major specific classes, so I've gotten to know all of the people I'm in classes with, and even when I'm in classes with mostly men, I feel safe around them and comfortable, free to speak my mind, which I think is wonderful. But I will also say that just on campus, I think there's a nice presence of females. I like to think I'm pretty involved in campus life, and I think a lot of women on campus are also pretty involved, more so than men. I don't know if that's because we feel like we need to kind of make up for it or what, but it's nice to see women large and in charge. And yeah, I think even from like everyday stuff to going to these big meetings and seeing a lot of women coming to panels and seeing women motivated and everything, I think it's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I would just kind of echo what Diana and Lexi said. I've had similar experiences. Like, I think it depends on the class year at WPI. Like my class year was pretty close to 50-50. I think we were like 48-52 or something like that. But I know that's not the case for all the class years at WPI, but I have never really felt that it's like negatively impacted my academic journey in any way. I've always felt that I like have a voice and I'm respected in that way. I think that that is also just the fact that WPI is such a collaborative environment, because project-based learning is so at the center of everything, that you're working with other people so often that it just becomes second nature. And like while like there are definitely people, you know, in industry who have difficult experiences, I would say that on campus the environment is very collaborative, very supportive. So even when you are in a male dominated team, which does happen sometimes, like I haven't felt that it has had any negative impact in any way.
Happy to hear that you guys are all having positive experience on that front. Okay, last question. Anything that has surprised you about the study of engineering that you didn't expect when you signed up for it?
Yeah, I think at MUD, it definitely is collaboration over competition. And I think that's something that kind of really surprised me. You know, we really stick to that. We really stick to everything really is that melting pot of discussion and collaboration. MUD actually has, I'm not sure if this was already spoken on, we do have a clinic program, which is our graduation requirement. So it's a 3-semester co-op program where you work with yourself and about 5 other students in a company. So just that real world collaboration essence was really surprising, and it's something that you will see throughout the 4 years.
Yeah, like Diana was saying, I think the collaboration at Rose-Hulman is really great. I know going into college, I was really worried about, you know, keeping up, but seeing people support other people, especially coming from like high school and it kind of being a competition to get into college and everything. Seeing collaboration, looking for internships, doing classes and everything, that's been really nice. I also think it's interesting how many other things people on campus do. I feel like a lot of times when I hear about engineering, people are just like, oh, I work all the time. It's just so much. But I know that I have time to do a bunch of other things, and so do other people. And I think that's really fun.
I think the thing that surprised me the most was just how much that you can do with engineering. Like I mentioned this before, like I chose it because it is very flexible and there's such a wide breadth of things that you can do with engineering, but I definitely was not aware of like the extent of the flexibility that engineering offers. And like, even like for me as a biomedical engineer, that's a fairly specific type of engineering. But even within that major, there is so many different things that you can do. Like you don't have to be working directly in medicine or in healthcare even, or like whatever your discipline within engineering is. Again, that's just one lens that you're studying engineering under, but you can literally work in any industry and at any point in the product development process. So I think that that's something that's really cool about engineering that surprised me.
Well, thank you guys for your candor in answering those questions. I'm going to ask all our panelists to turn their cameras back on so we can move into the general Q&A portion of our program, which Lisa is going to facilitate for us. If you have questions, we encourage you to post them so that we can take your questions, and I'll turn it over to Lisa now.
Okay, as Neela said, we have a few minutes here. So one of the questions that was posed early on, and this is for the admissions reps, it was for a member at St. Anne's, I would imagine, because it says our school does not have grades. So how can students who may come from schools where they do not give grades, how can the students stand out? In that case, do they need standardized test scores or AP scores or something in lieu of grades? And any of the admissions folks can chime in.
I'll start at St. Anne's is a fantastic institution. What we do, and this is not just specific to a specific school, we're looking at you as students relative to what you have in front of us in the curriculum that you're going through. And in the case of an evaluative transcript, which we'd find at St. Anne's, we're treating that in its own realm of academic readiness, in the sense that we're not necessarily looking for a grade at the end of the line, but even for our incoming engineers, we want to know, are you doing well in your math science classes? What is it that you've grown with over time? Are you ready for the next level of challenges respective to our own institutions? So that won't be a hindrance, but it's certainly something we're going to dive deeper on and really zoom in on your trajectory over time. I'll just speak broadly. Yes, in some cases, colleges will look at AP exam scores if they're there, but not always is that the case in admissions. We might not see those scores until way later on when you're maybe coming in as an enrolled student. So don't always feel the pressure. You need to have some numeric grade just to be evaluated.
I'd also kind of extend that question for students who are coming from schools where there is no AP curriculum. So at times they'll say, there's no AP curriculum. How can you tell that this class was really hard or that I learned a lot? Should I take a test? So I would say again that our task as admission officers, as admission counselors is we're learning about your school. We're learning about what the progression of courses are, what's appropriately like challenging for you and your so whether there's a numerical or letter grade attached to that class or a test, that's not necessarily like a must-have, because there's so much that we're getting already that's present, that not necessarily an external like an AP test would be all that different, to be honest. And also this evaluative essay or the evaluations from your teachers. Oh, you can tell when a student has had a lot of growth over the years. I'll say that much.
Anyone else want to add to that, or I can move on to another question? I think you probably covered the way that most schools would look at it. So another question is about if you have any sense of what kind of feedback alumni have about your engineering programs, positive or negative. And in addition to that kind of alumni feedback, how would you describe the main strategic areas of focus for your engineering programs?
I'll take a minute to talk about that. I'm also the liaison to our alumni development office, so I work pretty closely with our alumni. And I think the thing that I continually hear from them is not so much that our alumni received a degree in civil engineering or biomedical engineering or mechanical, but rather they received a degree in problem solving and critical thinking. So that's pretty consistent across the board for any of the alumni that I speak with, and only, of course, only talk about their positive experiences, but we've recently involved our alumni more in the recruitment of prospective students that they're asking. And so I know that's a fine line to tread as well, but I think alumni and how they speak about the institution is very important.
Does anyone else know what sort of feedback you get from alumni, or sort of how your institution would describe sort of the strategic areas of focus for your programs?
You want to go, Craig? Go ahead. You go first. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to call out, we often, first and foremost, as engineering programs, follow our accreditation mandates where we need to make sure that you're ready to go as graduates for the challenges that engineering is ready for, but what the world at large needs you to do, which is having the ability to use math and science to solve some complex problems. So that is always going to be a focus. You'll often hear that reflected in admissions, but also when you start off in the program, what these accreditations sort of guide you towards. I want to say that this is where I do want students and families to think deeper. At the undergrad level in engineering, you often aren't really trying to specialize too much. Certainly some of us have some great specializations, but you could always dive deeper with our individual programs after you start with that curiosity and say, what are we really good at, or where are we growing? What type of programs in engineering are becoming larger or more popular over time? And you could start to see maybe even research streams, how that might help. But that would be a very good place to start asking beyond just the admissions office, but our respective departments on our campuses.
I can also jump in for WPI. At WPI, we are on a quarter system. So we have 4 7-week terms. So things definitely move very fast paced on campus. So I think students have come back to say that fast paced nature has really prepared them well for the world of work. With our project-based learning, it's also a very collaborative environment on campus. So I think students are really prepared well to work in teams in the real world. In terms of, focus of our institution, I know we are really trying to grow interdisciplinary discovery. That is a priority on campus.
Anything else, or I can ask another question that has come in terms of if there's anyone, either admissions reps or students, if you have any ideas about this, how would you recommend that someone begins to pursue engineering during high school? Which I think that may mean, like, where should they even begin in terms of looking for the kinds of programs to figure out what engineering is? Is there anything specifically that you would recommend for that? Yes, or Professor, yes.
So there's so many options there. At times there are like official in-school programs like Project Lead the Way and things like that, but there's a lot of camps, there's a lot of events going on, from hackathons to programs like Girls Who Code, programs that are running weekly, robotics camps, anything like that, anything to get your hands on either coding, on any kind of robotics, on any kind of circuitry, on building, on machine tools, anything like that, to get your hands physically on stuff, to take it apart, figure out what's going on. I would, if your school itself doesn't have any particular programs like that, or doesn't have either something along the lines of like Science Olympiad, where you're building devices, looking at any nearby college, looking at any nearby programs, they are going to have their community programs and their community teams, student clubs doing stuff, inviting students to campus to come and do kinds of things like Engineers Week or a community day or anything along those lines, where you can get that hands-on experience. You can start talking to people at the universities, at the colleges, because that's how you're going to learn most about it and how you're going to learn how to get into these different programs.
Those are great specifics. Thank you. Anyone else have any other advice on where to look to start to find some of these ideas?
I'll chime in a little bit. When I was in high school, I did robotics, and I wasn't really interested in robotics or mechanical engineering at all, but I formed a lot of connections through that. I have a lot of engineering friends that now go to colleges, but when I was doing that in my junior and senior year, the mentor, who was a professional mechanical engineer, graduated with people who studied various different types of engineering. And he was able to connect me to those friends that he had from college. And I think that was one great way. So even if it's not something you're super interested in, just taking that step, trying something new, it might end up being something you love. And worst case scenario, it might just help you find something fun to do. It might help you make a good connection.
Excellent. Thank you for that. If anyone else thinks of others, feel free to mention them. One other question has come in about whether do engineering students have to know coding these days? Do you need to know it before you get there? Is that a focus of your curriculum? How does coding fit in to your engineering life?
I can lead this one off again. It is everywhere. Coding, it used to be that as a mechanical engineer, we wouldn't really need to code that much. But coding is everywhere. Internet is everywhere. Robotics is everywhere. Do you need to know it going in? No. Is it good to know some aspects of it going in? Yes. And there are a lot of different ways you can get started with coding. Everything from just going on to something like Codecademy, which is an online programming sort of lesson structure where you go in, you can get badges, you can sort of progress through different languages. Anything you can do to help figure out coding ahead of time is not going to hurt. But is it necessary to know coming in? No. All programs that I know have some form of a coding introduction class in the first year. It's like any other language. The more you learn, the earlier you start, the more you are going to understand. And if you're looking at it and you're saying, well, I don't know whether I should take Java or if I should take Python or C++ or any of these languages, how do I know which one is the best? It sounds bad. It really doesn't matter because you're learning the basics of coding. And once you know it in one language, all of a sudden in the next language, it's easier. You know what an if statement is. Yes, it might use parentheses here, square brackets there, all caps here, no caps there. But the basics, the structures, how coding works is really very similar from programming language to programming language. So whatever language you can get your hands on, it's going to help.
Thank you, all of you, so much. I know it's getting up on 8 o'clock now, and I want to just extend our gratitude for the time that you've given us here this evening, helping our students and their families understand about the breadth of engineering and the vast opportunities that are available at your various institutions, both from the academic and the student experience. So I want to thank you so much for being with us. I want to thank the students and families who are on this Zoom with us, and appreciate all your time and expertise. So thank you. And I guess we'll just say good night to everybody who is still here.
Bye.